Hey, hello everyone. I'm sure you are able to hear me. I would post a question and please answer that. I wish to know whether I'm audible or not. So here goes my poll question. Are you able to hear me? Yes and no. And there we go. Please can you answer that question, friends? People who are online attending. That gives me a sense on whether I'm able to, whether I can continue the session or not. Wonderful. So the answer is yes. So I would proceed further here. I'll be periodically looking at your questions if you have any at a later point of time. Yeah. So welcome to the world of digital transformation, which has a very close relationship with IR 4.0 or Industrial Revolution 4.0. Digital transformation is happening from the perspective of adopting the emerging technologies. That's one thing. Emerging technologies are being adopted in a big way, and that's one of the cornerstones for digital transformation to happen now. Vis-a-vis, we also have something else which is all from a strategic viewpoint. We will look at a few use cases and then we will get into what kind of industry framework you can look at, which will give you a good strategic viewpoint so that you can embark on the journey of digital transformation. Even before we proceed further, I wish to quickly introduce myself by getting into my LinkedIn profile. So, this is me. I'm Bharani Kumar. I happen to be Industrial Revolution 4.0 implementer, a chief data scientist, and technology advisor on 4 different companies. I work closely with a lot of companies in terms of digital transformation. I am an alumnus of Indian School of Business and IIT. With 16 plus years of experience, I work with companies such as HSBC, ITC Infotech, Infosys, Deloitte, so on and so forth. So, back to our discussion. So, as we have discussed at a high level, you need a business view and you need a technical view to implement digital transformation. Digital transformation is not just about understanding the various technologies and then implementing that. Before even thinking about what techniques, what tools I need to use for digital transformation, you also need to have a strategic viewpoint on how to proceed further with digital transformation. So the business aspect of it, the business needs are extremely important. So the first icebreaker is there are all these various companies, right? Pfizer, Daimler, Chrysler, Coca-Cola, Sony, Microsoft, so on and so forth. What is the one thing that comes to our mind when we think about these companies? Obviously, these are all big companies. These are all Fortune 500 companies. All these companies have a very sound financial background. Their fundamentals are strong. This is what we hear when we hear companies such as Sony, Johnson & Johnson, Microsoft, Starbucks, so on and so forth. But the one thing which people do not understand is the CEOs of these companies were kicked out in the last decade. At least once, the CEOs were kicked out in the last 10 years from each of these companies. Oh, such big companies, giants, but still their CEOs were kicked out. But why did that even happen? Okay, that happens because of various reasons. One is not being futuristic, not able to think on how the future would look like in the future, not adapting to the changes in the past which have impacted the future, not having a thorough know-how about that would negatively impact the organization's growth. And that is why strategy is very important. Taking the business side and tilting yourself towards the business aspects and thinking about what changes were done in the past and how did that actually impact the future in the past. I repeat, how it impacted the future in the past, meaning someone would have predicted 10 years back that the smartphones market would be very encouraging. So how did that change for the next 4 or 5 years after that prediction has happened? Learning from those things and then looking into the present and then predicting the future is something which is at the heart of devising your strategies. And majorly, the strategy that is being implemented today is related to digital transformation as a strategy. It's not the regular strategies which entices the board of directors anymore. What really entices and encourages the present world leaders and the board of directors is digital transformation as a strategy. Okay, and you all can write down your company's strategy statements, in 50 words at most, and think about, are you really doing any significant change or not in your company? Do you actually understand the strategy statement or not in the first place? Okay, we'll see the best ones later if you find time. So when it comes to digital transformation, the core of it lies in two things. One is obviously the business aspect of it, and another is obviously the technical aspect of it. And when it comes to the technical aspects, we can think about Industrial Revolution 4.0. It has a lot of pillars. And one of those pillars is databases. Another thing is data science. Another thing is artificial intelligence. Then robotic automation, cloud computing, cybersecurity. These are all the various pillars of Industrial Revolution 4.0. And these new breed of technologies would actually help you work in a smart manner. And implementing IR 4.0 also gives you access to data. And from data, you can glean a lot of meaningful information. And that information is used to draw insights. Meaningful insights. Okay, so having said that, I want to talk about a few use cases on how digital transformation is being employed. Okay? So this is a project that we have done for one of the manufacturing giants in the space of FMCG, fast moving consumer goods. So in this specific scenario for a client for whom we have worked, they had something called as a blower sensor, or blower unit rather. Let me not call it as a sensor, blower unit. This unit would take the raw materials, okay, which is nothing but preforms, small tube, glass tubes, which is also called as preform. And then these are supplied to the blow unit. In the blow unit, air would be blown into these glass tubes called as preform. And if more air is blown, it would become probably 1 liter bottle or 1.5 liter PET bottle, etc. And if less air is blown into that, maybe it becomes a 200 ml PET bottle. After you get the different bottles from this, you need to fill syrup into that. You need to fill, maybe if it's Pepsi or Sprite or Coca-Cola, you need to fill some syrup into that, some liquid. That is maintained in something called as a chiller unit. Okay, you have something called as a chiller unit. Okay, and this chiller unit has something called as temperature sensors, which will maintain the chiller at a specific temperature. Blower units will blow the air, so you'll have pressure sensors. Then chiller units will maintain the temperature of the syrup. Then after this, you have filler sensors, filler units. These filler units will fill syrup in a not in a concentrated manner. Here you will have syrup which is very concentrated. Here you fill syrup along with water. You mix water with syrup, with carbon, the different chemicals, and then you put it into the bottle. And here, when you put it into the bottle, you obviously don't want to fill the syrup until the brim, because the fuzziness would actually destroy the bottle, or when customer opens the lid, entire fuzzy gas would gush out of this bottle. Okay, at the same time, you do not want it to be until here, because customers won't be happy. They'll be assuming that, or they will get into the notion that you're saving, liquid by pouring only until here. Instead, it should be somewhere here. So you'll have something called as height sensors, which will measure the height of the syrup which is filled in this diluted syrup. And then you'll have packaging unit, and then you'll have pallets which get created, and then you'll have the distribution which happens through trucks, transportation equipment, so on and so forth. So given all these things, as a plant manager, as a manager or the head of this entire manufacturing plant, you should think from business perspective on what will happen if any of these units fail. That means the machines which are blowing air or maintaining the syrup at a specific temperature or measuring the height, what will happen if those machines fail? Your entire manufacturing process will come to a standstill. Okay, so as a plant head, you would be interested in doing some digital transformation which will ensure that your manufacturing goes on continuously without any hiccups. So for that, maybe you want to take the route of digital transformation. Okay, so you will basically install some kind of industrial IoT sensors. So this is something that we have done for a component called as air compressor. We can do it for anything, absolutely. Okay, so we have, say you're doing this for air compressor. You're trying to predict whether an air compressor component will fail or not. So you basically install sensors, okay, and industrial grade sensors which do not fail. And these sensors will relay information or data rather on whether the compressor is getting overused or what is the amount of wear and tear. You get all that information. Once you capture the data, you use that data to analyze further, and you'll be able to predict when a machine might fail, when your air compressor component might fail. And then you can also forecast the future maintenance. Okay, that means when should you proactively perform maintenance on your components, on your machinery, etc. And with that information, if that information is shared with your technicians will go and proactively address this issue. They'll proactively fix the issues. Okay, so that's how we have implemented one of the solutions. Now, there are many such solutions that we have implemented. One is this in the space of automotive. So this was an amazing solution wherein we went from transporting the raw material from a quarry, from a coal mine, for example. If it's transporting the coal to the manufacturing plant somewhere here, it's a factory. Let me call it that. And usually the route which leads from your coal mine to the factory. Usually the route will be narrow. If one truck here fails, then all the trucks behind this will slow down. The movement will be slowed down. So okay. So the one thing that we can do is we can ensure that we install sensors on these trucks, and then we can make use of those sensors to start generating. And we have actually come up with something called as telematics controlling unit or electronics controlling unit, which is nothing but an IoT device, and you do some embedded programming. And then you connect that particular TCU or ECU to something called as OBD, onboard diagnostics. And then the truck will start sending you data, real-time data packets. Those data packets will come to the network, gets transported, and it will get collected on cloud. Will recite them on cloud. From there, you can perform descriptive analytics or predictive analytics. And we started predicting things such as who are the, if a truck is transporting coal, will it break down in that specific day or not? If it is going to break down, which component might actually break down? So one is component breakdown. Another is the truck itself is going to break down or not. This will help us proactively schedule maintenance. So when we proactively alerts, it says, hey, your truck might break down in the future. It might break down in the next 3 hours, 4 hours. And then proactively, you can go and fix the a specific truck, or you can do maintenance activities proactively so that the downtime of your vehicles is reduced, so that your manufacturing or your coal mining, the entire process does not get negatively. Okay, so these are few amazing use cases in the space of digital transformation. Now let me see. So why digital transformation? Because because of COVID, a lot of companies have suffered significantly in terms of employing human resources, because it was lockdown, people were not supposed to come out, and entire operations which was manually driven was impacted significantly. So what should happen then? What should people do in that case? People should resort to some kind of automation. I mean, think about automation. What else do you think about, right? Other than digital transformation, right? The companies which were implementing digital transformation in the past were taking 4 to 5 years on an average to accomplish the digital transformation journey, to make their organization sustainable and make their organization agnostic to any future COVID scenarios, any scenario which is similar to COVID-19, right? So how do I make my industry agnostic to those things? This is what people were majorly focusing upon, and they in the past it was 4 to 5 years for digital transformation. Now after COVID, people are able to do the digital transformations within 8 months to 10 months. So the cycle, the overall time taken to implement digital transformation has shrinked significantly. Okay, and then before I get into the digital transformation strategy, I wish to just see how many of you are here. Please stop the screen share. The framework which actually will help you decide on how to proactively address this digital transformation journey. Just give me a minute while I pull up the right slide. So I got to the crux of it. So let me actually draw something for you guys and show on how digital transformation can be accomplished by assessing the industry structure. So a minute more and I'll be showing you, I'll be drawing something very, very important, and then you'll actually love to see that one. But I need to pull up a document in the interim. So you'll have to just quickly allow me a minute to do so. Sorry about that. So let me share my screen as well. Okay. So friends, there is something called as 5 force model. In this 5 force model, 5 force model. course, at the center, you have competition. Who are my competitors? And when you have competitors, what will happen is you have many players or you have less number of players. What are the features on which your competitors are competing? You have less market penetration or high market penetration. And you need to analyze what is the rivalry among existing firms, that is between between your company versus your competitors. What are the features on which you're competing? Can I do digital transformation to increase the worthiness of those features or not? This is one very important thing that you need to look at. This is from an industry standpoint. You're comparing your entire industry. And then you also need to look at entry barriers. Are you into an industry where you have high entry barriers? Probably aviation. Of course, if you want to be aviation, you need regulatory bodies and far too many things that you need to look at. If it's a space such as an IT company, information technology company, it's relatively easier. If you want to enter into digital marketing service, it is relatively easier field to get into. Okay. So you need to look at you have your entry barriers. Your entry barriers means a lot of competitors can easily come in. Your competition space is going to blow out of proportion. It will become really crazy. Too many competitors will come in. Or do you have a threat of new entrants? I mean, is the threat of new entrants very high? Meaning, entry barriers are high. If the entry barriers are high, not many competitors will try to enter into your space. So you need to assess the threat of new entrants. Threat of new entrants. And also, you need to think on what are the digital transformation steps that you want to take to ensure that you also increase the entry barrier. That means you are going to make difficult for the new entrants to enter into your space and compete with you. When you make it difficult for the new entrants to enter through your features, to the digital transformation activities, then the number of customers or the customers who want to buy again at the cost. If you charge more, customers might say, hey, I have other people, other competitors. I can purchase from them. If you're going to ensure that through your digital transformation journey, you put in barriers, entry barriers, then there will be less players. If there are less players, then you can control the bargaining power of your customers. If you have far too many options, the customers will have bargaining power. They bargain and then they'll ensure that you give your service or product for a low price. But if you're going to ensure that you have a good control there, regardless of next. You also need to look at the bargaining power of your suppliers. So suppliers might say, hey, competitor A, I'm going to charge you so much for supplying the goods, raw material. If you're not going to pay me, I'll go to supplier B. The other supplier might pay. So this way, bargaining power of suppliers will increase if the number of competitors are more in the market. Simple. So you also need to look at that. On the contrary, if you want semiconductors for your company to work, if you want semiconductors, or if you want some kind of operating system, you have Intel and Microsoft. They monopolize. They have a monopoly, more or less. Of course, now we have AMD, but then when it comes to operating system, yeah, majorly there is a monopoly. In that case, you have less bargaining power. As a company, you have less bargaining power. So you need to look into all those aspects. And if you're into that space where your suppliers are having a monopoly over you, then your digital transformation strategy should be to build the capabilities in the space where suppliers are having monopoly. Because if suppliers have monopoly, they will charge you more. But if you're going to build in-house capabilities through your digital transformation journey, then you can reduce the bargaining power of suppliers. So look at this particular 5-force model as an industry evaluation framework. But while you evaluate it, the solutions that you need to implement, especially in the space of digital transformation, should be aligned to your analysis. And finally, you also have substitutes. Meaning, the service or the product that you're providing can be replaced. How can people replace it? And who can actually replace it? You need to assess and point what could be a few of the alternatives with some better or comparable price performance. If someone is giving better performance for a lower price, or someone is giving more features than what you're providing for the same cost, then obviously people will go to your substitutes. So you need to assess the threat of your substitute. Threat of substitute products and services. Only once you analyze all these things can you actually get into a zone where you start thinking about where do I channel my digital transformation energy in my company. Implementing digital transformation is going to be a challenging task. It won't be easy. So first of all, organization where you're having challenges. First, you assess your industry as such. If you're into, say, okay, once. Yes, Anil? Okay. Not sure why. I'll be speaking, and let me know whether voice is okay or is it still breaking? Are you talking? Then I request you to please let me know. Is it okay now? Or is the voice still? Okay. Is my voice okay? Can you hear? Okay. I want someone can please reply. Okay, sure. Can I move on with the discussion now? And let's see. If you're still facing any issue, then do let. So here we are anyways almost done. In another 5-6 minutes, I'll be done. So this is how we need to look at the 5 force model, and then we need to check whether just one second. I'm not sure whether you guys are able to hear me or not. I request confirmation, please, if it is okay now or not. Is my voice okay? Okay. So now let me take a quick poll and let me ask the same question again. And do let me know whether you are able to hear me or not. Please, can you answer? If the issue still persists, then I think we'll have to call off and then. Able to hear me now, friends? Okay. So now you're saying that you're able to hear me, so I shall proceed further. I just refresh my screen. Okay. So what I was saying is, okay, so I think I'll have to quickly read. So I was saying that we have this model which is used to assess the And that is you get your rivalry. That is your competitors. You get the entry values. That is the difference. And also you get your customers. Who are your customers, etc. And the is the bargaining power of your customers. I don't know. It's working in process. With respect to suppliers, you need to check whether your suppliers are bargaining heavily. Once again, look at the bargaining power. And then you need to look at your substitutes. Are there any new products or services which are going to act as a substitute for your product? And then you look at threat of entry barriers who are the new players who might enter into your business. So while you want to ensure that there is high entry barrier, not many people should enter, and low bargaining power for suppliers and customers, and also have an eye on the substitutes. If you want to do this, then you need to follow digital transformation diligently. Because you never know, there might be new products which might come into the market. And in initial days, what will happen is the market will be like this. And any new product which a new service which comes into the market will start doing in a linear fashion like that. That means at this point of time, this is low. And this is high expectation in terms of performance of the products or services. This is the minimum the customer is expecting. And if this is the time, say 2022, for a new product or service, this is a minimum that people are expecting. I mean, this is what they're expecting, but this is a minimum and this is a max performance with respect to various components. Then in 2025, expectation of customers will be that I want at least this much amount of service. But what happens is if you don't give an eye to your competitors will start with somewhere here. You might feel that they're not even your competitors. But and when customers are getting a service, when customers are getting this service at a specific price, why do they opt for this? They will not opt. So they are not your threats. But eventually, over a period of time, they will surpass. That means they're beginning a service probably 2027 or so. Which is far superior for the same price as what you're providing. So you're not even do this then if you're not going to analyze the industry. So these are a few things that you need to bear in mind before you implement a digital transformation. Okay, and also one closing note before we end this is that strategy comes from the word strategy. Strategy is used by the Greek army, and then strategy is a plan. You're devising strategies to win. Remember, we are not planning a strategy to just play. If you're going to devise strategies, digital transformation strategies, only to play, then that will become a failure. Your digital transformation strategy should always be to win, and only then can you truly come up with successful digital transformation implementations. So, in order to win, companies need to create and sustain the competitive advantage, and the competitive advantage is digital transformation in the world that we live in now. So, welcome to the new era of digital transformation. And please make use of this model for assessing your industry and to come up with a successful digital transformation strategy which will lower the bargaining power of your customers and suppliers, which will put a high entry barrier on new players entering into your industry. Vis-a-vis, this framework also will help you to tap on the new services and products, which might act as a substitute. So with this, I just want to conclude here. There are many things, but then I'm just restrict myself to this discussion. And I'm sorry if my voice wasn't clear. Okay, I'll even share the recorded and then you can do the recording. Sorry about this. My voice wasn't clear, sorry. That's something I need to check. All right, thank you all so much.